Hey gang, want to talk with you a little bit about zeroing that pistol red dot. So, as many more of you are getting red dots mounted on your pistols, which is fantastic. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about zeroing it, how you can do that a little bit more effectively for yourself. So, there is a lot of conversation about what distance you should zero that red dot in the beginning. Some people will say 5 yards. Some people will say 10 yards. Some people will say 50 yards. I really don't know who says 50 yards, honestly. But
Atlas Gunworks people.
Right? 1,000 yards. No.
John Wick, Pit Viper people.
So let's think about, first of all, the trajectory, the ballistics of that 9mm round. Now, you got to understand that you have to zero the red dot based on the type of round that you're using. And I'm talking about 9mm since it is the most common round out there. Okay. So you have 9mm, that's 115 grain, you have 124 grain, you have 147 grain, right? So think about what you're gonna either be A, training with, or B, carrying, okay? So let's talk about 115 primarily. And by the way, folks, if you train with 115, I'm a proponent of carrying 115, right? So that way your zeros carry over just nicely. Okay, so Brendan, let's talk a little bit about that grain weight and then the yardages and all that stuff.
Yeah, so unlike your iron sights, right? Your iron sights are close enough to the barrel, right? To where you don't have to do a little holdovers, okay?
And from the factory, by the
it's 21 yards.
yeah, they're almost all zeroed. The iron sights are calibrated for a 25-yard zero. But go ahead.
So what it is that, so the line of sight, the center line of your red dot's up here, but your barrel's down here. So at some point in time, if you just parallel them both, the round is eventually going to drop off, right, as your dot just keeps going straight, right? Clearly light doesn't, do bullet drops. What you do is you slowly intersect them, right? So you're not really shooting the pistol parallel, it's kind of canted up a little bit, right? So that at 15 yards, they intersect, right? Which is the zero that we want.
Right.
Okay.
So we gave away the special sauce on this one. We're going to want you to zero to 15 yards. We'll explain why in a moment.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I do it. One tip though that I tell people is not to rely solely on their backup iron sights and lollipopping it on the front sight. Okay.
Independent.
Independent. It has to be independent. Okay. Two things. One, you likely change the front and rear because now you have suppressor sights, right? That's one way to do it.
Or optics height sights.
Optic height sights. Two, depending on what gun you have, like for example, this gun or Ernie's gun right there, the sights is actually sitting high enough to where it actually disturbs it, right? There's still parallax in these things. So you don't want to lollipop it because it's not going to be as accurate as you want, okay? Second, to lollipop the sights, you're not actually zeroing it properly because it's hard to try to focus in the front sight at the same time see the red dot.
Right. So folks, forget about the iron sights when zeroing your red dot.
Right. You can start there, but make sure you calibrate it properly.
Okay.
Right. And then, secondly for me, if you're, like Ernie said earlier, if you're shooting 115 grain, try to use 115 grain defensive ammo, right? I have found, right, 115 and 147 is the biggest deviation, and it's about 2 to 3 inches in this gun, okay? And that's a lot, personally for me, especially in a defensive situation.
Right.
So
now when zeroing, okay, some people will say 5 yards because most engagements happen between 3 and 5 yards, and therefore point of aim, point of impact. I guess, but that is to say that you'll never have a 10-yard or 15-yard engagement, okay? At which point, at that distance, instead of point of aim, point of impact, where that red dot is, your round is actually going to be hitting a little higher than where that red dot is actually on the target, which is a little weird because, good Lord, people, defensive situations, it's hard enough for you to think as it is, and now you got to think, do I aim higher? Do I aim lower? What do I do? You're not going to be able to do that, folks. I'm sorry. I wouldn't be able to do that. Would you? Probably not.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Stone Cold Killer, I guess.
So if we take a look at the trajectory of your standard 115 grain 9mm rounds, the trajectory is that the round goes up and it apexes at the top of its trajectory, its lob, if you will, at 15 yards. That's when it hits it. And it stays flat and constant more or less till about 25 yards. So for that 10-yard distance, that round is flying straight and flat and awesome. After 25 yards, it begins to dip and then drastically fall exponentially. So what you can do is ultimately you want to get to a 15-yard zero, so that way you're calibrating that red dot for the apex of that trajectory. So now, at any distance less than 15, you're just going to aim slightly above your target. And at any distance greater than 15, you're just going to aim slightly above your target. And when we say slightly, folks, we're talking about a 1/4 of an inch in that ballpark deviation, okay? 1/4 of an inch or so deviation, which is really negligible, minute, de minimis, whatever you want to say, in the heat of the moment. So you're pretty much roughly point of aim, point of impact, no matter what.
I think people have it backwards a little bit, right? So what they would do is they would zero at 5, 7, or 7 yards.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I want to be as accurate as I can on the distances, and then not realizing or fully knowing and still doing it, knowing that at 15 yards to 20 yards, if you zero at 7, your rounds are going to be high or off your target, right? To a point where holding over maybe,
Or holding under.
holding under may not be bad, but it's definitely hard, right?
Yeah.
So I think you have it backwards. I think you should have pinpoint accuracy between 15 to 25, right? Because that's usually where the targets are a little bit low percentage or smaller.
Right.
So, and then have looser standards per se, closer, right? And by loose, I mean like 3/4 of an inch.
Right.
So it's not that
and
flat.
and then you can appropriately hold over, because that's all you're going to have to do, hold over the target, which for some folks we call that mechanical offsets.
Yeah, absolutely. So people with 15-yard zeros will typically be, if they just put the dot at the center of the target, it will hit a steel target from 0 all the way to 25. But people that zero their guns at 5 yards will hit the target at 5. But the moment they do 15, that's going to be a miss, right?
Yeah.
So that's the
All right. So let's briefly show how we do this. Now, how I like to zero a red dot is, say I'm at whatever distance starting off, I like to zero first at 5, because what I like to do is once I mount that red dot, I don't know where that dot is essentially pointing. So what I do is I go to 5 yards, I shoot 3 rounds, and I just want to get close to the target. So now I'm there. I have something to work with. Then I back it up to 10. At 10 yards, I dial it in nice and tight. And then I go back to 15 and then do it yet again. So now at every increment, I'm just making smaller adjustments and fine tuning it. So the way it's done is I'll shoot 3 rounds. 3 rounds based on accuracy. It's not for speed, none of that stuff. I just want to get 3 rounds as tight as I possibly can. So here, first I load, okay? So now I'm gonna shoot 1, 2, 3, okay? Now, those shots will, when I connect the dots, I'll go downrange, I'll take my Sharpie, okay? And I will connect the dots on those 3 hits, okay? Take the center point of that now connected dot triangle, and then you'll adjust that center point, that dot that you make, to the intended target that you were aiming at, okay? Now, there's a lot of red dot zero targets out there that have grids on it that can help you, but even if you don't have one, it's really easy to do with just a piece of paper. Put a circle in the middle of the piece of paper, make your triangle, adjust appropriately off that, and then come back and do another set of 3, confirming that you're on. If you need to make another adjustment, you do that, and then you do another set of 3. But always making 3 shots as tight as you can. Take the center point of that, adjust onto target, okay? And that's really how you do it. Now, you need to be cognizant of what the MOAs per click are on your red dot. Are you running 1 MOA per click? Okay, 1/2 MOA per click or whatever. Be cognizant of that when you're actually zeroing. What is a minute of angle? What's an MOA? Real quick, it's 1 inch at 100 yards. One adjustment will move the strike of the round 1 inch in whatever direction at 100 yards. That is a minute of angle, okay? All right, gang. So that is how you zero your pistol red dot. If you're running 9mm 115 grain, do it at 15 yards, easy day, and you'll be better for it.
Are you concerned about civil unrest? I mean, who isn't these days? Protecting your home and family? Your family is very important to you. Protect them with everything you've got and make sure you never feel like a victim. Learn how to be confident using a firearm and prepared if a dangerous situation arises. TRB Training has courses specifically designed to teach you how to de-escalate dangerous and tense encounters. You can stay paralyzed in fear of the worst, or you can learn how to respond to dangerous scenarios with confidence. Sign up now for the Handgun Workshop.